Hey, Jamaica.
Hi.
How are you? Good.
Well, listen, my love for you runs deep, so thank you for
Thank you.
joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Omari, I am scared.
That's a great lead-in. That's the way I
I
want it. That's
am.
what Paramount wants, by the way. Memo.
Are we officially rolling, guys?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay, great. So yeah, Omari, I am scared. I saw Spell. I saw the trailer. I saw as much as I could because I have to be honest with you, I don't do very well with scary movies, and I wanted to be able to sleep, at least get enough sleep, so that I can be here virtually with you.
I
What
appreciate
made you want to do this project, Spell, this movie? It is definitely a thriller.
you. Yeah, for sure. There was that it wasn't just horror. You used the word thriller, so that helped. Um, there was never a moment, and I didn't think about this till this moment of answering your question. There was never a moment as a kid watching horror and thriller that it didn't at least get you to turn towards it somewhat and go, should I watch it? Is there a reason that moms and pops have forbade me to watch it? Like, what's the deal here?
Right.
You telling me not to touch the hot pot, I'm gonna go touch it. So,
Right.
by the age of 8 years old, even in terms of watching Michael Jackson's Thriller, to use that word, we saw a miniature movie called a music video, and that had more of that horror component to it, and so did other things that I grew up watching. But it was the ones where you felt the psychological component involved, and really the sort of the journey, I guess, of the person, the character, and their internal journey, and what they have to figure out within themselves, while also trying to figure out how to get out of this maze that they're trapped in. Whether it be a 5 by 12 by 15 foot room with Loretta
Right.
Devine sitting over you or standing over you, trying to bring you down to your knees, whatever it may be, like the internal struggle is what attracted me. This guy is in a major internal struggle, and that was a big deal for me.
Working with Loretta Devine, talk about a big deal. How was it? How is she on and off the screen? I mean, she doesn't look very nice in this film, so
No, no,
it's a big difference from what we usually see her or roles we have seen her in, I should say.
for sure. She had, prior worked with me on Tyler Perry's For Color Girls. So
Yes.
I definitely was aided by having a relationship with her. And that didn't necessarily start on that film. Prior, we had done a table read together for a play. So in doing that movie, it sort of was a moment of reconnection, and having done Tyler Perry, and then of course, and adding the reconnection times two with doing this movie, there was that moment where I felt a level of pride that I could sort of aid her in ushering in a character that the world had not seen her in,
Hmm.
and that's your job as an actor. And I mean that in terms of actor denoting both genders. Your job is your castmate, you know what I mean? And when people have asked me to make it analogous to a sport, I always say tennis. Like a tennis match doesn't work unless you hit back, like it doesn't work.
Right. You got to
Basketball
get that
works,
synchronicity, that chemistry, all of the
right?
things.
So yeah, basketball to football to baseball to even cricket, it works if you keep it to yourself. But in tennis, it doesn't work if you don't share it. And so I was proud. There was a lot of pride involved, and in ushering or aiding again, and ushering her to this place where, and she trusted me. That was a big deal. Like, she trusted me, obviously prior, because of absolutely the aforementioned relationship. But in terms of seeing me in this light, she had not necessarily seen that. She'd seen me as these cool characters that were hella complex, super
Hmm.
complex, but pretty cool under the collar, under pressure, whatnot. And all of a sudden, she's seeing this vulnerable guy, which Mark Tonderay, the film's director, really impressed upon me that he wanted to challenge in me. Like,
Hmm.
he definitely felt like there had been opportunities for me to show complexities before, and that I had, pretty much knocked the ball out of the park. He stated that, which was very flattering to hear. But he said, in terms of the levels of vulnerability, yeah, you've shown vulnerability, of course, but the levels, we've never seen you like this. And so there was that tennis moment of, well, if I'm aiding you, Loretta, then, I'm trusting you equally to aid me, and showing a color that the world has never seen. And it's not really hard when your actor is Loretta Devine. She's just never not on. People have talked about my memory, definitely as photographic, definitely being a poet. I remember a lot, but for her to be the latter parts of 60 years of age and remembering all that she remembered, I mean, it was pages of dialogue. You saw how much her dialogue is.
Yeah.
She remembered it all. She would sit and study. Mari, bring your ass up here and study with me. Okay, here I am. I'm studying, but I'm limping because I'm in method. So now I'm limping. So my body is all wrecked because I've been contorting my body into so many different, like I got bed sores damn near by that point. But it's so easy to say, you got it. Yes, ma'am. Whatever you need, because it's Loretta Devine. Like I'm so proud that now I am part of her journey, part of her dossier, her freaking journal that can include these incredible characters. And she gets to say, oh, I worked with Omari Hardwick on that one. I mean, that's mind blowing for me.
I would imagine it's also mind-blowing to be in a movie like Spell. I mean, it is definitely among a growing number of Black horror films that have come out since the success of Get Out. So I wanted to ask you, what impact do you think Jordan Peele has had on the genre, the horror genre?
As much as Michael Jordan had on the NBA.
Big, massive.
Huge. I mean, I don't know if Jalise, we haven't been really seen when you think about it, and we've been seen vulnerable as it pertains to the genre of love story.
Yes.
As far back as
crime stories,
The Great White Hope, Mahogany, shout outs to Diane and Billy D, Lady Sings the Blues, even Guess Who, the interracial dating or coupling of Sidney Poitier with the female lead. Like, we've seen what that looks like, us being vulnerable for love, us being vulnerable with not only crime, but being on the other side of crime. Menace to society. We saw that, what the Hughes brothers did, what John Singleton did, Fathers and Sons. John Singleton nailed that, rest in peace. Well, oh my God, Boys in the Hood was unbelievable. And Spike Lee has thrown so much at the wall, and it's all stuck. What we hadn't necessarily seen from an artistic standpoint, from an aesthetic, was what Jordan Peele created with Get Out. And that being vulnerability as it pertains to those of us colored, me and you, running around afraid, not only from the standpoint of a horror, but also in the standpoint of having to deeply look within ourselves and go, what is she or he trying to get me to do? What's happening? And asking the fan, the viewer, to take that same ride. That hasn't been something we've had to ask the fan.
And how about just straight up surviving past the first scene?
But that's that horror genre that has allowed people to go, okay, there's gore, and then blacks haven't made it out of that. But in terms of the psychological thriller, Get Out was another level of that. He didn't just do horror. He did horror meets psychological thriller. And then Daniel, the actor in that, having to be the level of afraid he was, not trying to get out of the first scene, but trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with this, character that I'm playing opposite. Like, we haven't been seen in that light. So it's really nice to be able to play such a great, complex, cool, under the collar again character, in that being Ghost, and then for the world to see me right into another world of vulnerability, but differently vulnerable, which was the challenge of the director when he met me. He said, I want the world to see you where you're broken. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. We haven't necessarily been seen in the horror psychological thriller space as a broken entity, only in love and only in drama. But to be broken within a psychological space that Jodie Foster proved to be at times, trying to figure out who Hannibal Lecter was, played by Anthony Hopkins, I haven't seen Black people do that. And so this is a beautiful moment for us, historically speaking. And yeah, to your question, Jordan Peele has a massive influence on that allowance.
And your massive influence on the culture by playing Mr. James St. Patrick, AKA Ghost. Before I wrap up with you, because they're giving me the wrap up, I have to ask you, just that impact and that love from the fans, did you ever in a million years imagine that it would be the way it was and is
Never.
Still to this day? Never.
You just kind of, you know what I mean? Is Jalissa, when I say it, you kind of, so Jalissa, you get through those huddles, and for boys, it's one way growing up in terms of socialization. For girls, it's another way. and you figure out friendships and who you shouldn't be around and who you should. But at the age of about 25 years old, we figured this thing out enough where you should have an antenna as to how cool you are and how cool you're not. And so, dare I say, if you can get one fan within that space, when you look in the mirror and go, okay, God, you've wanted me to create art and you want me to do it this way, not like Misty Copeland doing pirouettes as a ballerina or a fadeaway jump shot, being made by LeBron James, or run up and down a football field, which was a former life for me. You want me to tell art this way. Okay, so how does that look? Well, for me, Jalise, it only looked like being that of a storyteller. Because even as a football player, I was a storyteller. Even as a poet, I was a storyteller. The story has always been so priority for me that you don't really think about all the people that will follow the story and that will then therefore thusly follow you and become not only fans, but sometimes you DM them. Sometimes they start to send you gifts, socks, hats, shirts. Like sometimes they get mad forever that a character that they fell in love with is no longer in that space of what they like seeing you in. Like, not in a million years would you think that. So it's just the most humbling thing in the world. And fans know that I rock out for them forever. So for all my, not only Ghost Riders, but for all my old riders, forever indebted to the day I die, forever.
Well, they are in for a really scary, wild ride and treat with Spell. Thank you so much, Omari.